Carnelian comes in a multitude of colors. Well, most, of course, they are shades of reds and yellows and oranges and all that. Sometimes you wouldn't even believe that it can come in specific colors, but everything that I have here is all carnelian. Sometimes it can be banded, and when it is banded, it is actually, I have another piece here, it is actually considered a type of agate, and it is named sardonyx. But the pieces that I generally like the most, and I only have these two, actually this one is a little bit, are the ones that have several shades with one shades and hues and tints, and one including on the other, and that is actually what I tried to imitate in the following tutorial. So if you're ready, let's go for it. So we start with 3 pieces of translucent Premo that have been run through the pasta machine on the thinnest setting, and you need to condition them really good because the alcohol inks dry the clay, so it will be a little hard to mix the clay afterwards. I cannot tell you the colors, only for 2. They are the Ranger's watermelon red and citrus green. The other ones are just plain homemade alcohol inks from crappy permanent markers from the Dollar Tree, and one old, almost dried archival ink. So I'm using a yellow, a red, orange, and maroon. And then in several spots I will be adding the green right on top of the red and of the orange, not on everywhere, just in certain spots. And then we need to leave that dry really good. Then pay close attention how I am gathering these. Yes, it's time for globs. I am kind of scrunching them because I will not be mixing. There's a specific way in which you need to kind of knead your dough, your clay dough, in order to achieve that look. So you practically press from all sides. Don't use the roller at this point. Just press exactly like you would try to manipulate. It will be a little hard. As I said, the alcohol inks do dry the clay and make your job a little hard. But just keep pressing from all sides until you see that they are fairly mixed. You will have a lot of whitish looking spots, and that's okay. Remember that Premo darkens a lot. The Premo translucent when it's tinted. And I do the same with the other 2 pieces. And I know I'm a little bit off camera, but it was pretty hard for my hands to press, so I am trying to be able to press. Essentially, as I said, you just press from all sides together without mixing. That's very important. You must not mix. Just scrunch the sheet and then start pressing from all sides. Deform. See, the acrylic block should give you a better idea. Just deform by pressing. Do not mix. That is exactly what I've been trying to do with my hands. Then once they seem to be relatively mixed, You put them together, making sure that you have a colored side over a more whitish side. And that is when you can use the roller just to make things easier when you break the block apart. But make sure that they are all well stuck together, that you have no air pockets between the pieces of clay. Then start breaking it into pieces of relatively various sizes, but try to not leave them be too big. I'm leaving only one piece a little bit bigger. Then kind of round them just a little bit. Don't let them have sharp edges. Just a little bit round them, the same way that I showed you how to do for the turquoise nugget beads. And do that to all your pieces. Sorry, I have allergies and my throat is really bad. Now get a little glass and mix some maroon and some green in it. Then on about 2/3 of your pieces, dunk them in there and let them be coated a little bit with that mix of inks. You might have to put more ink because it evaporates really quick. But you don't need to put a lot of ink. You don't want the pieces to be fully coated. And you can repeat the dunking in ink on several of them, so they would get a little bit darker than the other ones. But again, leave about 1/3 of them as they are. Don't put them through the extra ink. Now for the next step, you will need some pastel chalks. Do not use mica powders. Do not use glitter. Carnelian does not have sparklies at all. The only thing that might give a little bit of a sparkle would be a fracture line, but otherwise the only inclusions, yeah, you can have inclusions in carnelian, like the carnelian that's got copper inclusions from the Mojave Desert, but they don't look like glitter and they don't look like mica powder. So at this point you want some brown, some white, and the cinnamony color, because usually that's pretty much the colors of that smoky inclusion type that you see in carnelian. And again, on about 1/3 of them, dip them in the powders on one side, in just one of the colors, not in all three. Dip some of them in the brown, some of them in the cinnamon, some of them in the white. And then of course, now because they have some powder on them, in order to put them together you will need some type of bonding. And I'm using liquid polymer clay. Now my suggestion is, if you have the Sculpey clear, use the Sculpey clear, because sometimes the regular liquid Sculpey might not give enough transparency and you might get a dull area in your faux stone. And first put them together 2 by 2 and press real hard. So put the spot on the one of the pieces that has powder over the spot on the other piece that has the liquid clay. And then after you put them together 2 by 2, you can start constructing your separate stones. This does not work like a veneer. This works like chunk cabochon. And I made all those cabochons by hand because I only have the little scalpy silicone mold, and those were too small for what I have in mind. And besides, one of the pieces I had to make it in a specific shape for the Tuareg style jewelry tutorial that I'm going to make. But I've shown you before that you can very easily create cabochons by hand, and especially with the faux stones it works beautiful. Now I'm starting to put pieces together. I'm going to first form it into a ball, because by pressing between my hands I make sure that there are no air pockets and all the pieces are well stuck together. Then I am starting to form my cabochon. Sorry, I went on the side because it's all full of all kinds of stuff there. I need to move that paper. So I am first making an oval one. I do have one single oval cabochon silicone mold, but it's too small and too small as size, but too deep as thickness for what I want. And I am getting a few more pieces and pressing them together again. And this time I'm going to form the piece for the Tuareg jewelry, which is pretty much like a rounded triangle, but not really, because the point that's outside, that's hanging down, is actually flat, is not pointy, but you get the idea. And also I don't want to use that bigger cabochon I have, because as with all translucent clay, if the piece is too thick it's going to lose a lot of transparency, and I want my pieces to still be transparent. So that is pretty much my second cabochon. Now, I can see that there are 2 of those small pieces that have that old archival ink, and they look like they will be too red, so I'm going to just try and make a banded one. If it comes, okay. If it's not good, again, okay. And it didn't come up right, but I will show you how to make a sardonyx when I will make a few agate tutorials, because I have that in plan too. I don't know when, but then there are so many agates that there's room for everybody to make tutorials. But yeah, as I said, when carnelian becomes banded, it is considered an agate. So you saw I made the type of a semi Damascus cane, and then I flattened it so I would form the bands. But yeah, and this piece did not come up right, not because of the banding. The banding came up just fine. It was just the color. That old archival ink was way too red, too pinkish red, that is. So it did not work as a carnelian. For the next one, I am going to get all the remaining, yeah, I'm kind of dismissing this one, I hope you notice. But yeah, you'll be able to see the shape of the bands. I mean, as I said, the bands came up just fine. It was just the color that didn't work, and I hadn't tried that before. I said, let me give it a try now. And I was very careful where the piece with that droplet of ink was, but yeah, it does not look like carnelian. It's more towards rhodochrosite or something like that, but not carnelian. Definitely not carnelian. It will still make a nice pendant though. Okay, so for the last one, I'm actually going to get all the pieces and make them into a ball, and oval ball, and just cut it in half and form two elongated teardrop shapes of cabochons. And yes, I got them that shiny. I still don't have a grinder. I still don't know if I could handle a grinder with my hands, and I'm still using the Kato PolyClay, liquid PolyClay too. And you see, it gives a beautiful. And the other thing is that when you use the Kato liquid PolyClay, you can bake the pieces. So it's not like when you use some other types of varnishes that you cannot bake the pieces anymore. Happy claying!